All right. Welcome back to the Ninja Wealth Exchange. This is episode 13. And so, in the previous episode, we talked to you guys about short term rentals and how to get into that game. We had our guest, Chai Hyung from Florida, where he does a whole bunch of STRs out of the Orlando Disney area. If you missed that episode, go back into your YouTube library and you can watch that one. The episode before that, we had talked about long-term rentals and how you can get started doing that. So naturally, of course, it leads up to the next thing, flipping, right? Where I personally don't think it's investing, more like speculation. It's more like transactional, right? You are, you're buying something short term. Hopefully, you buy it low, you do some stuff to it, and you resell it high. All right. But today we have our very own Johnny Vang here. He has recently acquired a flip project of his, and he's gonna go through with us what he saw in the deal, why he decided to do it. So he's gonna break it down, right? From acquisition, planning strategy, how did he fund it, how did he buy it, what's his plan for renovation, and what's his expectations in the deal, right? Is it going to be a good deal or maybe not, right? So let's get right into it. So Johnny, welcome in. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm doing pretty good. Been busy, but doing good.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, let's get right into it here. So you recently closed on a flip, right? What was that? A week ago, 2 weeks ago?
It was a week ago. Yeah, about a
Okay.
week ago Friday. Yep.
And can you tell us how you found that? Was it through MLS? Was it through off market, on market, wholesaler?
Yeah, so when I do flips, I'm always looking everywhere, right? You're talking to wholesalers, you're looking on the MLS, you're looking on Zillow, because sometimes Zillow has properties that are not listed on the MLS. You're just basically looking everywhere and talking to everyone to try to find something. But this specific property, I actually found it on the MLS. So
Nice. Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, believe it or not, deals still exist in MLS. I I do help a lot of investors to find flips, and most of our deals we find for them do come from the MLS. I found it to be like market to market, honestly, like in terms of how good is the deal from a wholesaler versus the MLS, or obviously the best one is you find off market, but with nobody else involved, right? Um, but in our market, wholesalers are pretty much listing their deals as close to retail. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. There's not a lot of meat in the bone. What are you seeing in your Twin Cities area with wholesalers?
Yeah, we're kind of seeing the same thing with wholesalers, and the reason is because there's a lot of investors out there that are always buying. So the wholesalers are, if they can't get one investor to buy, they're going to get someone else to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And because our population is pretty decent in size, just like Milwaukee, we're going to be looking at competition, right? So if the wholesaler knows 100 people and he blasts it out, there's likely people who are going to take it for a higher price than what you might be willing to. So and we're going to go over the numbers in a little bit here on how I do it, and I think my numbers are going to be a little bit more conservative than the normal investor out there.
Yeah. So just to step back a little bit, people who don't understand, maybe you're watching for the first time, wholesalers, can you explain what that is, Johnny?
Yeah. So wholesalers are people who are reaching out to everyone, right? So they're reaching out to sellers, trying to find ways to get properties that are not currently on the market. So they don't actually, they're similar to realtors, except for they do business off of the MLS, right? And they don't give you any kind of fiduciary responsibilities when they come in. They service you. What they really do is they come in, they'll call. Let's say, for example, they'll call a seller, cold call, whatever, find out how, like, if someone's selling a property, they'll reach out to them and they'll say, "Hey, looks like you want to sell this property. Can I make you an offer?" Right. And they might be willing to make you an offer that they think that their buyers are going to be willing to buy it at. And so they'll come to you as, when I say come to you, like come to you as a seller, and they'll say, "Hey, we're willing to buy your house at 250,000. That's kind of where the price is today." Or they might come to you and say, "Hey, we need to put in $50,000. So we're not going to offer you the full amount. We're going to offer you a reduced amount because we have to actually put work in before we can put it back on the market. And so they reach out to sellers just like how we do, except for they don't give you any kind of representation. They come, they make it an offer, and then they sell it to someone like me, right? An investor. And so they'll reach out to me and say, "Hey, we picked up this property, we put it under contract. Do you want to purchase this property?" And if the deal is good enough, we will, right? But it's got to have enough skin on the bone. It's got to, everybody's got to win in the process. The likelihood is that the person that loses out the most is probably going to be the seller, but oftentimes the sellers are in difficult situations, and so we're really helping them out by just purchasing their property in general, right? So
Yeah.
wholesalers are like unlicensed realtors, kind of,
Yep,
without
essentially.
representation. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting, the whole wholesaling thing. In some states, wholesalers are required to be licensed, right? So you do have to
Hmm.
disclose that you are a licensed realtor, which I think it does help in the end, because I mean, the wholesaling industry can be very gray and can be very scummy, right? Um, like, they're all the people out there with the "we buy ugly houses, we buy your house cash," blah blah blah. And so a lot of them will say they'll call you up if you own any rental properties or whatever, right? They're those robocalls, or you get some random calls from telemarketing conference centers, whatever. And they'll be like, "Hey, do you want to sell your house at 1234 Main Street? We'll give you a cash offer today." Right. But don't
Hmm.
fall for it. It's all BS. They're going to be like, yeah, they're going to get you on the phone. They're going to talk to you, speak to you, and, promise you the moon. And then they'll probably end up like, "Hey, after we come out and look at it, they can probably give you 50%." And then
Yeah.
essentially, yeah,
There's good wholesalers out there,
there
right?
are
Of
good
course,
ones. Yeah, there are good ones.
yeah,
Yes, yes, there are
there's
good ones, and
scummy
there are bad
ones too.
ones too, right? It's just like in every industry. Um,
Yeah,
However, those are the unethical ones, the ones that
yeah.
claim that they will buy your house cash from you, but really what they do is they get you to sign a contract, and then they go market that contract to somebody else. And so they go market to an investor like Johnny or me. They're like,
Mhm.
"Hey, I got this great contract. This is the price. This is how much work we think it needs. Um, you can buy it from me, right?" And so they make money on the spread. So they promise to buy it technically from the seller, and then they make a spread on it. They add whatever they want to make on, and then they charge you, the end user, the investor, right, the end buyer. Um, and so that's kind of how they make their money. And some of them are, dishonest. They don't really end up buying the house if they can't market it. They can't get rid of the house, the contract. Then they just end up going back to the seller and say, "Hey, sorry, uh, looks like we can't buy it," right? And
Yeah,
so if you were um, a seller, a homeowner that is in a distressed situation, maybe foreclosure's coming, and they promised you they would buy it, well, now all of a sudden you're kind of SOL, right? You
mhm,
are going to lose your house essentially, right?
mhm.
And so wholesalers, they go after the very motivated sellers, the hoarders, you're not paying your mortgage, you're behind your property taxes, things like that. There is a place for them, right? And some of these houses, they don't belong in the MLS. Usually the MLS is for like nice houses that people want to go see, and retail value, right?
Yeah.
But every once in a while, you do see houses that are in very bad shape on MLS, and those are marketed to investors. Um, Recently, I've been seeing a lot of wholesalers listing on the MLS, which is really interesting because you're not supposed to list a house that you don't own. So
Oh,
I don't
that's
know if you've
weird.
seen that. I don't know if you've seen that, but I've been seeing that a lot in Milwaukee here, where these wholesalers will contact the agent to list their wholesale contract up. So it's very interesting. I don't know if it's legal, but don't ask me.
No, we
Uh,
haven't seen that yet, so that's pretty interesting. Yeah.
anyway, let's so we went down the whole rabbit hole of wholesaling. Um, and then let's continue on with your flip here. So you bought it on the MLS. It was a good deal. Um, what factors influenced your decision to pick this property?
Well, so some of the factors that you gotta look at is location and economy, right? Or microeconomy. And so one of the biggest things is that, like, so for me, right? Usually when I'm gonna buy a property, I have to have more than one exit strategy, right? So, either I'm gonna purchase it and I'm gonna turn it into Airbnb, or I'm gonna turn it into group housing, or I'm gonna turn it into a single family rental, or I'm gonna just turn around and sell it, right? So you got to look at multiple different exit strategies. And so when you're looking at it, you're going to look at the location, right? For me, I don't like dealing with the properties that are in the very, very urban cities, just because the type of clientele that you're going to get is very different than if you go into the suburbs, right? So most of the properties that I purchase are going to be in the suburb. So one, I go into a suburb. Now, in a specific suburb, there's going to be a microeconomy. And so the specific house I bought was in Brooklyn Park. And in Brooklyn Park, I know Brooklyn Park pretty well because I live in it myself. And in Brooklyn Park, you have Target, right? Target's a huge employer inside of Brooklyn Park. You have Caterpillar that's in Brooklyn Park. You have like some of these major Fortune 500 companies that are located inside of Brooklyn Park. And so you know that if you were to, worst case scenario, you have to rent it out single family, right? um, you're going to be looking at renting it out to a single family that needs to have some kind of a job. Like I look at, for tenants, for example, I look at, you need to have 3 times rent, right? And 3 times rent is actually pretty significant for a monthly amount. So when you're looking at that something that high, it makes it, you got to make sure that the jobs in the area actually are supplied to be able to make that level of income. In addition to, you got to look at, can the people in that neighborhood actually buy the house once you're done rehabbing it, right? So for this property, as far as I'm aware right now, the plan is to sell it, right? So we're looking at, turning it around as fast as possible, getting back on the market in the springtime. So that being said, we're going to look at, okay, is the economy good enough for someone to come in and purchase it at the price that I speculate it's going to be once uh I fix everything inside of the house. Now, the level of work that I normally do in houses, I try to keep it under $50,000. Anything more than $50,000 is a major rehab. And so my thoughts are is that if it's more than $50,000, I'd rather not get too involved in it because I'm running a mortgage company, and then I'm also running, or a mortgage brokerage company, and I'm also running a realty team. And so, you don't have much time to focus on that side business in itself. So you got to measure what you're capable of doing and how you want to actually pursue it. So those are a couple of the things, right? So location and economy, and your plans on what it is that you're going to be doing with that specific property.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know anything about Brooklyn Park. I'm not a Twin Cities person, so um, I've been there, but I don't really know anything about it. But anyway, sounds like Target corporate is there, and Caterpillar's there, so it's definitely good.
Mhm.
So employment is good. So then makes it sound like it's a very desirable suburb area, right? Market of the Twin Cities. So that's good. Do you mind if we talk price numbers? Like, what did you pick it up for? What did your comps run at?
Yeah, for sure. So, for me, I'm in Brooklyn Park. They have a variety of price points. They
Mm,
have everything from like 250 all the way up to like a mil, right? Like
mhm,
1.2 mil. And so in that, I'm always looking at the average price of the Twin Cities, right? So inside of the Twin Cities, you're going to be looking at houses are going to go for somewhere between 300 and $400,000 on average. Those are the ones that everybody's buying, right? So what you want to do is you want to look in that price range, and then you want to look at, okay, can I reduce that so that I can actually put in the repairs and still make a spread on it, right?
mhm.
So when you're getting ready to, because when you go in, you're usually going to buy something that you can force appreciate, which means
Right.
you can put in repairs and create a better neighborhood by going in, fixing up the home, and making it better, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, the honest truth is you want to help people, right? In this case, this specific buyer or this specific seller was going through some financial trouble, and by me purchasing it from him, he got out of that financial trouble, and he's in a much better position now. So,
Mhm. Yep.
and I only know that because the listing agent went over everything with me,
Wow.
and so
Okay.
we were pretty open about the conversation. Usually they're not that open, but in this case they were.
Wow. Okay. Um, yeah. So as an investor, right? Typically, when I help my investors, we always like to go, the ones that are flipping. We like to say, hey, yeah, we like to buy the ugliest house on the block, right? And then improve
Mhm,
it, make it look nice, so that all the other neighbors are like, oh, you guys did a great job on that one. All right. Bring up the
mhm,
value, bring up the curb appeal of the whole neighborhood. So, Okay. All right. So, so obviously you looked at the numbers and you're like, hey, this looks like it has some potential here. And then of course the area, all that fits for your buy box, your criteria, right? And
Yeah.
then let's talk about the next step, financing, right? So you
Actually,
found the property.
before we
Oh,
go there,
okay,
could I show you guys how I would
oh sure,
recommend someone that's not a realtor do it?
sure, oh yeah.
And
You talking
then
about comps or what?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, not just comps, like how you can actually look, right?
Okay.
So, you're seeing my screen now.
Yep, yep. I put it on the share. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So in this neighborhood, right, we're looking at okay, where are the price points, right? So when you look in this specific neighbor, you're seeing things for sale, and this is mind you that this is the winter market. So that means that prices are going to probably be down by about 10% in the winter market, if not maybe even a little bit more. So when you're looking, okay, you're looking at these different properties, you're going to see one here. So this is Brooklyn Park, right? And we're looking for a 3 bedroom, 1.5 plus bath, right? More than 3 bedroom, more than 1.5 bathrooms, up to 350,000, nothing more than that because you want to sell it for about, 400,000 or in that range. And specifically single family homes, right? I don't do anything beyond single family because single family sells faster, right? So when you're looking in this neighborhood, you have, 305 here, 345 here, 299, 240, right? So when you're looking, you're like, okay, this one is priced pretty low, right? And so you kind of want to look at, okay, so this one is a duplex, you can tell, or maybe a twin home. And so that's not something I'm going to work on. That's the reason why it's much lower. So we're not going to look at that one. So let's look at the next one, right? The next one is 299. Okay, so this is a single family home. It's already a 4 bedroom, 2 bath. This is what we consider here in Minnesota a rambler, right? Some people might call it a bungalow, but we call it rambler. So I'm just going to click through the pictures real quick. Okay, so this is why it's not selling, right? If you look at this color, there's no way. Can you see the color on this? Um, let's bring you the
Looks
pictures, right?
beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. Um, this
Very
yellow
futuristic.
is not gonna work, right? So the family that lives in here might really like it because it might brighten up the whole entire house, but the honest truth is nobody else is going to care for it. So the question is, how do you come in and how do you help them with this process? Well, you're not going to buy it right at price, right? As an investor, you're likely going to buy it somewhere between 70% to uh, uh, 80% ARV, right? So what that means is after repair value. So once you go in, you update everything. Where's the price point going to be? And then you subtract it out, the percentage for you to make sure that you're going to make some kind of income on it. But of course you're going to increase the value of it because you're going to make it way better than it currently is. So this is something that you can go in, and since it's on the market you can actually reach out to the realtor, right? So the realtor's information is right here, and then you can just ask them like, hey, can you guys do something better than this? Like, can like, and then of course, talk to your realtors, have them take you out, go look at the property. Is it something that you're interested in? And could you get the price lower than this? Now,
Mhm.
for this house, right? Let's say, for example, the value truly is I actually my thoughts are just because I know the area, it's probably going to be like somewhere between 325, 325 is probably going to be your max purchase price for this
Mm,
in the springtime. So
mm.
you're going to go
Not really
ahead and what was that?
not really a good one then.
Well, so you're
Not
gonna
not at
take
this price.
your
Not at this
yeah,
price, it's
you're
not.
gonna do your numbers, right? So 325 for the house, right?
Mhm.
You're gonna get your spreadsheet out, right? Times it
Yep.
by point let's say 75, right? Because that's what
Mhm.
you want to buy it at is 75% of the actual value. So the
Okay.
max that you can offer right now is 243,750, right?
Hmm.
So this dollar amount right here.
Okay.
Um so that's the max that you can offer. Now, the question is, how much are the repairs going to cost? Could you do them yourselves and could you make it less? Whatever it is, let's say it's, I don't know, 500 for painting because you know how to do it yourself. You're going to put in the manual labor. And that's all it really needs, right? Painting, maybe, another $500 for patching with some holes or something like that. So the max
Yeah.
you can offer is actually going to be 242 750, right? So
Mhm.
then you talk to the agent and just say, hey, or you have your agent reach out to him like, hey, would your client be interested in this? Is this something that is even worth your time? Like you don't want your realtor to already write a contract because you don't want to get stuck under this by sending an offer in and then having to wait. You just want them to call, right? Just can you call them real quick and find out if they'll accept this number?
Yeah.
Um, some listing agents will say, send us a contract. And then, of course, you send one in. But if they just say, hey, we might be willing to entertain it, then you send in the offer.
Right.
So then,
So this one, I think when you scroll down a little bit, it said 60 some days in the market. So
yep,
they are, that's 2 months, right?
yeah.
And
So they're going to be motivated. Yeah.
I mean, if they want to get rid of it, right, they would be. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, and then you can see the history, right? So here's the
Yep.
history. We're listed up for sale back in the end of October, and then they finally dropped the price just recently. So they
Yep.
were holding out for a while. So maybe they're not that motivated.
No, they're guarantee you they're motivated now because when they wanted 325 to begin with, because that probably truly is the value of the house
Right.
once the upgrades have been done to it,
Sure.
right? Or
Right.
once the repairs and the like once you bring it back to neutral colors, right?
Yeah.
Um, nobody goes into a house wanting to buy a house and wanting to paint everything, right? Now, they might go into a house and see it and they might be like, okay, it looks nice, but we probably will paint it, right?
Mm,
If it's
yeah.
a neutral color. If they walk right in and they have this like bad taste in their mouth as soon as they walk in, they see bright yellow walls and like that distracts them from the whole purchasing process. They're going to be like, I don't like the yellow walls. That's the first thing. And that means I don't like the house, right?
Yeah.
So,
So, I mean,
um,
other interesting thing to note is that they bought this property in 2020 during COVID for
mhm,
286. It listed at 279.9, so they overpaid because it's COVID market, right? So you had to
mhm,
overpay to get it. So
yeah.
if they bought it at 286, realistically, if asking them to take 240 may not happen. But you never know.
Yeah,
So
you just don't know. You don't know their situation.
right,
You
you never
gotta
know.
ask, right? The big
Right,
thing is, yeah, they may not take it, but it doesn't hurt to ask, right? So go
right,
ahead and just ask. If you run the numbers and you think that you can actually get more than 325 for it, of course,
right,
go in, right?
right,
But
right.
I mean, if you only have to put in a couple $100, right? Or maybe a grand or maybe 3 grand, would this make money for you? And the answer is absolutely. So as you walk through, you should probably have your contractor with you as you walk through. Assuming you do a lot of flips, they'll come out. If you're not doing a lot of flips, they don't want to be there. So you just have to be good at estimating or guesstimating what the actual cost is going to be to fix things up. Now, after you get under contract, I always do an inspection, and the inspection will allow me to know whether I actually want to continue and proceed with it. In this case, there wasn't much of an issue, so we went ahead and move forward with it.
Mm, okay.
So, um, so we actually bought the house for 250,000. But our property was listed at 315, right?
Wow.
And the after repair value is probably closer to 350
Oh, wow.
come springtime. So the spread is pretty good on it, right? So and then of course you got to check rent, right? You want to go in here, you want to, 3 plus bedrooms, 2 plus bath, right? Single family home.
And so you're only checking
And
rent.
you're
I
look
mean, if it's a backup strategy or what? Because you're planning to flip, right?
Yep, yep, yep. Backup strategy, right? Because if
Okay.
it doesn't fit your backup strategy, you don't want to go in it, right? So
No, it
in
makes
this
sense.
case,
Okay.
you're looking at 4 bedroom. The house that I bought was a 5 bedroom. This is, you got one here, 3 bedroom, 26, 4 bedroom, 28, right? So when you're looking at those numbers, of course, you're gonna run them, find out if it pays for the mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Bought it for 250, put it 25% down, interest rate at 7.375 on a
Mhm.
DSCR. Monthly payment is about, 1820. So that leaves me with a spread of about $780 per month, right? If I
Wow.
was to rent it out.
Mm,
Um, of course, I'm thinking I could probably make about 50,000 on it. So, you take 50,000 divided by the possible spread difference, and that's going to take me about 5 years, right? So this is about 5 years. We can divide it by 12 months. It takes about 5 years for me to recoup that 50,000. So I'd rather go ahead and make the 50,000
today.
in a couple months rather than wait 5 years for it, right?
Mm. Okay.
Uh,
All right. Cool.
okay, yeah. So we can dial back.
All right. So where were we at now?
So
We're
the
talking about
financing,
funding. How did
yeah,
you fund?
yeah. Yeah, so funding, right? So I went ahead and used a DSCR loan. And the reason I used a DSCR loan was because I had the down payment, right? I had the ability, and if worst case scenario comes, I already have it under a 30-year fix, and we can go ahead and just rent it out, right? However, if in 60 days, or I don't know, it's 6 months or whatever, however long I actually hold on to the property, if I decide that I'm going to sell it, then we can go ahead and pay it off. This specific DSCR product, so Minnesota doesn't really allow prepayment penalties. They do up to the max of a 3-year prepayment penalty, but the specific I'm a mortgage broker, so I work with a bunch of different wholesalers or wholesale lenders, right? And so I went with a lender that doesn't have a prepayment penalty,
Mm.
and so I can go ahead and turn around and sell this in the next 3 months and be just fine.
Mm.
You got to be careful because in different states, right? Like I know in Florida, there is a 5-year prepayment penalty on most of the DSCRs that we do.
Yep.
So you're gonna lose some kind of money, and make sure you build that in the spread, right?
Right.
But here in Minnesota, because they don't allow them, we don't get charged any prepayment penalty.
That's
Um,
interesting.
if I
So
didn't, go ahead.
I actually like prepayment penalties if you're going to buy and hold. And that's mostly what DSCR products are for, right? Like
Mhm,
if
mhm.
you intend to hold a property, right? Because it's DSCR, for those that don't know, debt service coverage ratio. Uh,
Mhm.
so debt service coverage ratio, basically a fancy word that means, does your rents that you collect for the entire building cover the service, right? Which is the mortgage service. So
Yep,
can your rents cover the mortgage, and by what ratio, right?
yep,
So a lot of times they are like 1.00 ratio is acceptable. Sometimes they're even less is acceptable, but they're going to get you more on the interest rate and the down payment probably.
yep,
But then if you have like a 1.2, 1.4, you're going to get a much better interest rate. And, and then the prepayment penalty, I do kind of like those because sometimes when I add them into for some clients, the rates are really good. They're like,
mhm, mhm.
they pretty much get down to like what conventional is if they add the 5 year. And if I'm
Yep,
like, hey, you plan to hold this for 5 years? They're like, heck yeah, I'm gonna hold it for 5 years. Then all right,
yep,
let's apply it. And then you're gonna get the rate savings, right? So they went from
yep,
like, just for example, they go from an 8.5 to a 6.75, right?
yep.
So yeah, anyway, go on.
Yep. So if you didn't do a DSCR, and the reason I use a DSCR is because I'm a realtor, right? And I have a lot of, dude, when you own a mortgage company and you're a realtor and you run a real estate team and you own other businesses, your taxes are just crazy, right? And so that means if you got to send in your taxes for a conventional loan, it's just a hassle, right? It's a big time hassle. Where in this case, I sent in my LLC documents, I closed in the LLC, I sent in my assets, and they did the DSCR numbers. It turned out to be a 1.1, and they were like, "We're good with it. Move
Mm,
forward." Right? So, it makes life a lot easier if you have the ability to do the down payment. I know that, in the Twin Cities here, it's harder to get 80%, but I mean, there's ways to do it, right?
what's the
And
down payment
then
that you did?
yeah, or yeah, so 20% down payment, 80% loan to value, right?
Okay.
So if you don't have the money, right, then you would do a hard money loan, right?
Oh,
So you have to have the hard money loans that I have, the products that I have, they require you to have 10% in the transaction. And then they require you to have some reserves too. So you got to have a little bit of money, or you have to have a partner that has a little bit of money going in. Um, doesn't necessarily mean you have to use the reserve money, but you have to definitely use, the 10%. And if you can get the sellers to cover closing costs, even better, right? In my case, they did cover some of my closing costs, which was pretty nice. Um,
oh,
yeah, so get the hard money, right? And go ahead and move into the transaction. Those are the two best ways to go ahead and move forward with a property that you're going to be flipping.
right.
If you plan on occupying it, right, then maybe you can do a conventional transaction, right? So I know that some of my investors, they will buy new construction, right? And they'll live in it for the first year, and they'll wait until the taxes get assessed, sometimes 2 years, right? And then they'll move out, right? And they'll buy another one. So they go in when the taxes are reduced, they buy a more expensive house, and then they finish uh, the bottom half of the house, and then they'll sell it. But they're living in it, and so that you go ahead and use a conventional transaction to do it. Plus, they're all W-2 people, right? So they have a job. They just do this kind of on the side, and they
Mm.
make pretty decent money on it. So
So it sounds like a
um,
live and flip type of
yeah,
thing.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
So, and then of course, if you live in there 2 years, you're exempt from capital gains, right? That's the rule.
Yep, yep.
All right.
That's the rule right
Um,
now anyways.
right now, right. Well, they're talking about changing it.
Are
Um,
they?
yeah, because well, they're talking about the amounts, right? Because it when that rule was written, it was back in the late 90s, like 97, 96.
Yep,
So
yep.
right now, if you're an individual, you can only get if you're by yourself, you can only write off or you don't get taxed on 250,000 profits. If you're a couple, it's 500,000. But obviously, since then, if you bought a house like CL in Seattle, right?
Mhm.
And it was 250, and now all of a sudden the house is worth 1.25 million. You gained
Yep,
$1 million,
yep. And
right?
now you gotta pay taxes on, like, what? If you're married, 500,000 of that?
Right. 500 only 500,000 gets, not no
Right.
capital gains. The other 500,000 you're gonna get hit. So I think they're talking about updating those numbers. So that's good. Um,
Yeah, it is.
yeah. And then so kind of back to the DSCR, a little something we missed, we didn't talk about. Obviously the perks are that less documentation, right? 20% down, fixed for 30 years. And then depending if you want to do prepayment penalty or not, you can kind of adjust your rate, your interest rate that you
Mhm,
get. But the other thing is that it is still driven by your FICO, your credit score, right?
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
what's the minimum on that again?
Minimum, that we're seeing is 680, right? So
Okay,
if your credit score is below 680, you're not gonna be able to do a DSCR.
right. So you got to have at least a 680 or higher, and then 20% ready. And there are some reserves too. Some of them do require reserves, and then some of them require experience. So some
Mhm.
lenders that do DSCR require you not to be a first-time home buyer, which is kind of confusing because first-time home buyer, when you think of that, like, oh, do I own a home, right? But from the investment standpoint, is you can be an investor and you can try to use the DSCR to buy a house, but you may not necessarily own a house. You might
Mhm.
be a first-time home buyer, right? Where you don't
Yep,
own property yet, you're still just renting, but yet you want to
yep.
invest, right? So there are some lenders who do have an exception for the experience rule that you have to own real estate, right? And so, of course, if you own real estate, if you already own another investment property, then you qualify, you pass, right? So,
Mhm.
um, and then hard money, the rates really depend, but rates can be anywhere as high as 15% from what I'm seeing. Um, and sometimes they do require you to have some experience. It is relationship based. Some local lenders, right? There are national lenders, national hard money lenders, which we can connect you to if you want national ones, right? Have you ever worked at Kiavi?
Yeah, yeah.
No, you
Yep.
have. Okay. I heard they're pretty popular. I've done Lima One Capital once. It was
Okay.
okay experience. Okay experience. We closed. So yeah.
I mean, these smaller lenders, right? Even
Mhm.
Kiavi is a little bit of a smaller lender in comparison to that of the large institutions like UWM and some of
Yeah.
the PennyMac or Wells Fargo or whatever, they are smaller lenders, right? And so they're gonna have these little nitpicky guidelines that are out there that are gonna give you a little bit more trouble. But
Yeah.
the thing is that if you hold through, it'll be just fine, right? It'll be fine. You'll the thing is you close on the deal and you'll be able to turn around and make good money off of it. One thing I want to say about the hard money loans is that it's a short-term loan, right?
Yes. Right.
So most of the times you're not going to have it more than a year and a half, and if you do, there's going to be penalties behind it, right? Most of
Wow.
the times I'm
That's
going to
really long.
recommend. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
really
yeah.
long.
That's on the long, like it's somewhere between 6 months to a year and a half. So you're gonna want to pay that hard money off with a traditional financing as fast as possible, or sell the property as fast as possible.
Right.
If you're gonna take more than a year to rehab this place,
Hmm.
get ready financially. You're gonna have to do some digging into how it is that you're going to be able to move it faster so that you can actually use the hard money loans without having to pay so much interest. Most of my investors, they move it within a 3-4 month period, right?
Okay.
There's a couple that I know that takes about 8 months, but 8 months have been the max that I've seen so far. I
Okay.
haven't seen anybody do it like a full year's worth of hard money. It's just too expensive by that point, right? So
Hmm.
that's something that you got to prepare for, and make sure you're aware that either you got to refinance out, you got to sell the property so you can pay off that hard money, because it really is just a short-term loan.
Yes. So that is a very good point. So DSCR, like you said earlier, can be 30-year fixed, right? So you're
Yeah.
set, fixed rate, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then hard money, right? Hard money is a little bit easier in terms of like less contingencies, less hoops to jump through.
Mhm.
DSCR can still require the traditional appraisal, lots of conditions, reserves, things like that, right? Hard money is usually like they do their own in-house underwriting. They'll check their
Mhm.
own numbers, or you supply the numbers, and they'll just look over your numbers. And if you can prove that the targeted ARV, the after repair value, is what you're saying it is, numbers work out. A lot of like local harmonies that I work with, they'll just give you the loan. Like there's no appraisal, they can close as fast as 2 weeks. And so that is one of the perks of a higher interest rate and a shorter term. It's much easier to get into a property, especially if there's a lot of competition. If you got to go up against people, if you're going to submit an offer with a DSCR versus a hard money versus cash, right? I mean, hard money is typically almost like cash. Um, so those are the things that you got to think about. And hard money, you got to be out within, you got to have that thing on the market by month 4, probably month
Mhm.
5 at the
Mhm.
latest, right? Or
Yeah.
you're going to be like, you're gonna be sweating
Yeah.
some big you get the whole balloon, right? There's due, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the hard things. And then if you can't flip it, or you can't, do that, then that's where the backup strategy comes in, where you could potentially put a renter in there if the numbers work out,
Yeah.
and then you can go do a DSCR refinance, right? So they're
Yeah.
gonna look at the rents of the area, and then as long as the rents cover your mortgage, right? And
Yeah.
then you can pay off the hard money lender through the refi, then you're good, right? So you
Mhm.
could hold
Mhm.
on to the property a little bit longer. So that's kind of the backup scenario that you should probably be looking at as a investor, as a flipper, where if maybe the flip doesn't go well as planned, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
so and then you had talked a little bit about if you want to go the conventional route to fix up a fixer upper house. Um, so I just wanted to make mention that depending on the condition of the property, right? If it's
Mhm.
a very dumpy, unsafe, inhabitable, right?
Yeah.
Um,
It's not
right?
gonna work.
It's not gonna work. Conventional is not gonna fly, right? Sometimes even DSCR lenders have issues. I've
Yep.
seen it happen. Like the appraiser fails it, and that's happened in one of
Yep.
my deals. And I was like, "Oh my god, really? Like this property is so much nicer than other ones that have passed before." But
Mhm.
you may just be the unlucky person to get that one underwriter, and he's gonna flag it, right?
Yep.
And then it kills the deal.
Mhm.
Um, so in that instance, if you wanted to like buy something like that where you wanted to live in and you wanted to flip it or fix it and then sell it later down the line, you could do what's known as a 203K loan, right? Which is a rehab loan. And they
Mhm.
offer this as FHA, they offer this as a conventional. Um, And what ends up happening is you buy it for a certain price. You get a contractor out there to bid, whatever you want to do, right? Like new roof, new bathroom remodel, new kitchen remodel, whatever, right? They add it all up, and as long as the sum of the price that you're buying today and the rehab, right, that you're going to put in, you add those together, as long as that value equals the new like ARV after repair value, then it's good. You're going to get approved for the loan. And so that is a really good way for a person who potentially doesn't have quite the money to buy a house in a really nice neighborhood they want to be in, but they can pick up a fixer upper and then get the rehab loan portion to help them rehab it and then get into that home, right? So that's a great strategy that I would recommend for somebody. And you have to have a lot of patience because this loan program, it is not easy.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, the renovation, loans, like a 2 or 3K,
mhm,
um, they are quite a process. So, in most of the times, right, they don't allow you to do too much work yourself on the property. So that
yes, good
means
point.
you're gonna need some kind of a licensed plumber, electrician, general contractor. So just get ready for those kind of things because they're gonna require bids from those specific people. Um, to make sure that when the work is done at a like with quality, right?
Right,
Now if
right.
you're a GC yourself, they might let you do some work, but if you're not and you're not in the profession, you can't just do some of those work. Maybe painting will be okay, but
Yep.
if the electric box needs to be fixed, well, it's got to be somebody else. So
Yeah, that's a
um
good point. All
yeah.
right. So let's move on. Next segment here. So what is your vision? What's your budget? Did you mention how much you're gonna put in and what are you expecting?
Yeah, so I didn't yet. So the vision, of course, is and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, to make the community better, right? To make the neighborhood better, and of course, to help people, and then finally to get rewarded, right? So you get paid through the process. You should make some money on it. We're not going to go into this doing it for free, right? And we're going to do it so that we can, also make a living. And then the process, right? So the process is, once you go through and you figure out what the cost is going to be. So when I walked through this house, I looked at it. It was marketed at 315. I knew I could sell it for about 325 to 350. And I walked into it thinking, okay, so if I can sell it for 325, 350, I'll make somewhere between $30,000 in the spread, right? But I have to put in $50,000 worth of repairs. And when I looked at it, I just like I walked through, I've been doing this for a while, so have a pretty decent idea of how much it's going to cost. And you're looking at all the lights and the fixtures. Are you going to move walls and all that stuff? And after replace carpet, repaint, and like painting is crazy expensive these days. So get ready to spend over $5,000 in painting the house, right? So that it can be a natural color. um when you look at all those different things, I came out with about $50,000 in estimated repairs. Now there could be some repairs that are not necessary in that process, but when I'm doing my calculations, I'm taking a conservative approach, right? Then I had my contractor go through it, right? So I did the walkthrough at the initial time. Then we did an inspection. I walked through the property again, double checked everything, made sure my numbers were still good. Numbers were still decent, so I went ahead and finished the purchase through getting the proper financing. Now that I got the property, on the day before the closing, I actually had my contractor walk through it with me and say, okay, so I'm closing tomorrow. I need you to walk through and give me the price on everything, right? So the contractor came through, he walked through, he gave me his price point, and it came out to be $40,000, right? For all the
Mhm.
repairs. I cut out some of the things that I was like, you know what, we don't I wanted to remove a whole wall, but then I decided let's not do that. I don't think it's necessary to sell it. So we're going to go ahead and just leave that wall in there. So that reduced the cost to about $40,000. Um, so now that I have the cost, right, I know that I offered 250. It's going to be 40,000 for the repairs, so that's 290 minimum plus closing costs is about $10,000. I think is what it cost me to close it. So
Mhm.
that puts me at about $300,000 purchase. And when I
Mhm.
sell it, if I can sell it for somewhere between 350 to 375, hoping right somewhere between 350 375. I should make somewhere between 50, somewhere between $60,000 minus some of the expenses from a realty perspective. Because I'm a realtor, I can list my own property, but if you're going to be listing it with a specific realtor, then you got to account for that. So my hopes is that we make, even if I use a realtor, we make about $50,000 on the project. So that's like the estimates of what I have and how I came up with my numbers, and that's why I offered where I offered as well.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. All right. So you said it's 5 bedrooms. How many bathrooms?
2 bathrooms.
2 bathrooms. 2 full, or is that 1.5?
Yep, 2 full.
Okay.
2 full.
So what's your plan? Are you doing new kitchen, new bathrooms?
Yeah, so the kitchen will or the kitchen's gonna be brand new, right? The
Okay.
whole entire kitchen's gonna be brand new. The appliances that they have was dated. The
Okay.
way the kitchen was shaped was horrible. Like, I don't know why they designed it the way that they did, but it's just not a good design. So we're gonna actually take it apart. We're gonna change it,
Mm,
and make it look a ton better. So once we're done, it's gonna be a brand
okay.
new kitchen, brand new appliances. The bathroom, we're gonna lift up the floors and replace all of the tiles inside of the bathroom,
Mhm.
and then we're gonna go ahead and repaint the whole entire bathroom, make sure all the tubs are good. Wherever there's tiles that are missing, we're gonna replace all of that. Make sure we put in quality tiles so that it looks really nice. And then once we get that done, the entire carpet downstairs. So upstairs is all wood, right? So we're gonna keep the wood upstairs. Probably just put a rug down, put some nice dining sets for staging. Downstairs, we're gonna actually remove all of the carpet. We're gonna actually put a wall in and create a new doorway, right?
Oh,
Um, and repaint the whole. So the whole entire house is gonna be repainted because right now they have like one room is all pink, right? So we're gonna
mm,
get rid of that. One room has black stripes or black and white stripes, and we're gonna remove all of that, right? And so it's just kind of awkward and weird. So the whole entire place is gonna be remodeled, and it's gonna be like brand new looking when we're done, right? Brand new looking when we're done. The other thing is that here in Minnesota, there are fireplaces, like
mhm.
wood burning fireplaces.
Oh,
We're
okay.
actually gonna close out the fireplaces, and then we're gonna sell it as just something nice to look at. So oftentimes they turn it into a electric or some kind of gas burning fireplace, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it. There's already a furnace that heats up the house just fine. So
Mm,
um, in the house, it's just going to be aesthetics, right, for the
okay.
fireplaces.
Now, as far as you mentioned the furnace, I mean, mechanical wise, anything else you need, like a new furnace, new AC, water heater?
No, so the furnace is pretty new, the water heater is pretty new, the AC is pretty new, the roof was pretty
Nice.
new, and so were the windows, right? They're all
Great.
like within 10 years replaced. And so
Saves you a lot.
those are yeah, those are things that when you go in, you're gonna want to watch for because if you're gonna replace all that stuff, you got to add it to the budget, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. So it sounds like mostly cosmetics then, from what you've said.
Yep. Yep. That's why I picked it up, right? I don't have time for something that you really have to put in anything more than cosmetic work.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So what's your timeline? You said when are you going to start doing the work, and when do you plan to list?
So we closed a week ago. The work will begin tomorrow on Monday. And
Okay.
so we're gonna like you can't waste time. Like you have to jump right in. You got to get it up and running and going. So my hopes is that we finish in a month. If we're not so lucky, which you always have to give time for, right? Anytime you do a kind of a renovation or a flip, you have to add additional time on top of what the time like your estimated time is going to be. So in this case, if we finish in 2 months, great, right? So we'll take January, February to finish it. March we'll list it, and it'll be up for the spring market, which is pretty ideal, right? Things don't normally always work out this well, but in this case, my thoughts are in 2 months we'll be complete and it'll be on the market.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not under a whole lot of pressure because I mean you have a DSCR loan, not a hard money,
Mhm.
so
Yep.
you can take that.
I mean, there is holding costs, right? So you
There
gotta
is,
think about that. Yeah, you gotta pay for the electricity, you
yep.
gotta pay for, all of the water, you gotta pay for the heating, you gotta pay for, like, the monthly payments that you're gonna have. So it's a DSCR loan, so I'll get 1 month off, and then the month it begins will be probably, I think February will be no, is it? Yeah. February will be the first month's payment, and so I'll have 1 month, and then we'll put it back on the market. Now, if I had to hold it for longer, that's gonna and let's say, for example, it's gonna be 6 months, I'm gonna have 6 months worth of payments, right? So, you better have that money, right?
Right, right, right. Okay. And then once you get everything all fixed up, I mean, what's your marketing strategy when you get everything fixed up? Do you do any staging? What do you do?
Yeah, so we always stage the living room, the dining room, the master bedroom, right? Those 3 always has to be staged because that's what sells. When you walk into the other bedrooms, people are like, "Oh, I want this to be my office," right? Because they may not have kids, right? So
Mm.
you want to give them the ability to have their own ideas, but in the specific master bath and in the specific, like dining room or kitchen area, you want to make sure that it looks really, really good and people want to buy it. It's same with the living room where it's like comfortable living. You're going to want to stage it, and then of course, I always do a comparable market analysis before I sell it. So if you don't have the skill sets to do something like that, then I recommend get a realtor involved, like a listing agent who can run numbers for you to find out where the market's going to be the moment that you're actually going to rent it. So I always make sure that you have a CMA done in the same month that you're going to be listing the property.
Mm. Okay. So we skipped over contractors. I mean, contractors is one of the most important things when you're doing a flip, right?
Mhm, mhm.
How do you go about picking one?
Okay, so for me, I've been doing the business for a little bit and I have friends in the business, right? So I have contractors that I can go to and say, "Hey, can you do this?" And if they can't, I have a backup, right? So my thoughts on this, if you're brand new into this business, you have to vet them out and they have to follow your contract and you better have seen their work. And so when you go out there, first of all, make sure they're recommended. So that means that when they come to you and they're like, "You should use me," right? Get 3 quotes, right? To get 3 bids on how much it's gonna cost to fix up certain things, right, inside of the house. And you're gonna want to do it by skill sets, right? So are you gonna hire a GC that you know, or are you gonna hire specific subcontractors that are gonna come through? Say, for example, I have a flooring guy, I have an electrician, I have like all these different things. But in this case, my general contractor is gonna be handling the whole entire project because it's actually a pretty quick project, right? Um, so my thoughts are is that interview at least 3 for each thing that you're gonna be doing on the house. After you interview, pick the best one, get them to give you at least 2 referrals and then photos. So then you wanna see their before and afters to see if the quality of work meets your needs, right? Because, everybody's gonna be a little bit more picky than the next person. I'm not that picky, so I'm just like, as long as you get it done and it looks good, I don't care what you did, as long as it looks good and it meets, code, right? Those are the only things that I care about. However, there are people who are going to be a little bit more nitpicky because, let's say, for example, the um the wood looks a little like off or something, or the paint, you can see a little bit of a line in some of the paint, right? If you're picky, you're going to have to find a higher end person that's going to be probably more expensive, right? So and then I think the biggest thing is your contract with your specific uh was it general contractor, right? You got to be pretty specific about what it is that you're going to do. In this case, the guy that's doing it, he's been doing business here in the Twin Cities for a long time. I trust him. He's a friend of mine. We've been doing business for a while together, and I've seen his work. He does fine. I'm not worried about, what he can and cannot do. So we went with a little bit more of a general one. But in the future, right? If it wasn't one of my buddies that was going to come through and actually do it, I would have things written out very, very specifically. So one of the things that I had to ask him was, hey, does this include all the removal of everything that's currently in the house? Because the seller left a ton of stuff. Like in Minnesota here, we require that when the seller leaves, it's broom clean,
Mhm.
right? Meaning there's nothing in there, everything's been cleaned out, right? In this case, there was sofas, furniture. I mean, you name it. There was all kinds of stuff left behind. So I had to ask the general contractor, my friend, hey, is this going to actually be included in the price? And then is the appliances included in the price? And of course, all that answer was yes, right?
Okay.
Um, so I recommend be as specific as possible. Like if you're a detailed person, go all the way to the colors of the paint, right? Don't leave it up for people to guess what color you want, because if you ends up being blue and you wanted gray, that's an issue, right? So um hopefully
Yeah.
that covers some of the things that
So yeah,
some of the
that
contract
definitely should
questions.
help. Now there's a lot of first time flippers that probably
Mhm.
are of the mindset that, oh, I'll just do everything myself because I'm going to save on cost because
Yep.
I'm the laborer, right?
Yep.
What's your
Yep.
thoughts on people who have that kind of mindset going into a flip?
Um, so I was that guy, right? I was that guy on my first, well, maybe not my first, but my second flip. I was like, I could do this, and dude, it is hard work. If you're not skilled at putting, I gained tons of skills doing it. So if you're okay with it being a learning process and losing a little bit of money, fine, whatever. But if you should always, when you're crunching your numbers, crunch it with hiring someone, because if you don't and you go in and let's say for example you repainted everything but you got like drips all over the place, and now you got to hire another person to come through to remove all of the drips, or unless like you have time, um it's going to be like there's going to be a cost involved somewhere, right? So either it's the cost of learning or it's going to be the cost of someone doing it right. And so just know that when you're going to go into it, like I'm all for people trying to go in and learning the process and doing it themselves, because I believe in people and I believe that their strategies will work over time once they learn the skills and they continue on. Like to be honest, I can do plumbing. I can do the only thing that I think I can't do on a house is electrical work, right? Because I don't want to burn a house down, right? And I've tried, and it's like I've almost burned houses down. So I'm not doing that anymore. We just hire a pro. But for painting, for like windows and all that stuff, like I've done it, and it's something that you can do, but the honest truth is, if you're a professional in whatever field it is that you're doing, for me, it is mortgage and real estate sales or being a realtor. That is my profession. That is what I'm really, really good at. I help my clients to the best of my abilities. I'm not going to waste my time to go and try to, fix up a house. And that's what I would recommend people, is that you stick with what you know and leave it to the pros to get it done and get it done right. um, Actually, no names, but there's a guy that I'm working with right now. They hired a contractor, and it was a family member, and the place is a mess now, right? And so they had to fire their family member, which takes a toll on the family. And now they got to bring in a new guy, and the new guys are like, "Well, they messed everything up, so we got to go back through and undo everything they do, and then redo the new stuff." And so it's going to cost more than what originally would have cost had you guys just hired, a professional to come through. And so in situations like that, guys, you have to be careful, right? You have to be careful. And like I've made mistakes of hiring, family members. And when you do that, you just I mean, you take the loss, right? You take the L on that and you just move forward. It's a cost of doing business. You thank them for their business. You don't do wrong by the family members. You just, even though it's going to cost you, you take it in and you just move forward. So that in by all means, do not go in husband and wife thinking that you guys will be fine, because you will argue all the way through. The wife's going to want something different for the kitchen than the guy is, right? The husband. And that's the same thing with the bedroom, same thing with the colors. Like, I mean, you name it. Unless you can agree with everything your wife says ever in a house, you're not going to want to be working with your wife in that. I mean, you want to test your marriage, go ahead, but I'm telling you, it's rough.
Okay. Okay. So we got some marriage tips too. Okay. All right.
Relationship.
All right. Cool. Cool. No, I totally agree. Stay in your lane. Nothing wrong with like learning how to do stuff, like you said. But there is a price that comes with it. And even though it's free, it might look free or less expensive. Your time is valuable too, right? Like you
Mhm.
said, if you're much better at finding deals, locking deals up under contract, go do that, right? Stop
Mhm.
wasting your time painting or trying to do tile. Tile's easy, mudding is easy, but it takes skill to do it right, right? Um,
Yeah.
Fixing a leak, fixing a toilet is easy, but not until you buy the wrong part, and then you got to run to the store back and forth, and that ends up eating the whole half of your day. Yeah, you know what
Yep.
I'm talking about. Yep. Oh, I bought the wrong size hose. Oh, I bought the wrong size thing. Like, yeah.
The other
So,
day the other day I went to install a thermostat,
uh-huh.
and, so I picked up a new thermostat, got all the wires, got the
Mhm.
batteries and everything, got to the house, and I didn't have the tiny little screwdriver that you need to be able
Oh,
to
yeah.
unscrew the screws for the wires. And I was like, "Oh my goodness." Now I gotta run back to the store. Luckily, there was another contractor there that was able to cut a piece of metal that allowed us to be able to, unscrew it.
Mhm.
But if it wasn't for that, I'd be running back to the store, and,
Yeah.
it takes time. That's like
Oh,
a good 30-minute.
oh, yeah, man. Not even like, yeah, 30 minutes each time. But,
Yep.
that's funny you mentioned that thermostat. Like, there was a Facebook friend of mine, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna install one of those smart thermostats. Looks simple enough. I'm gonna do it myself." He ended up short circuiting his furnace, destroyed his furnace, broke it somehow. Had to call the furnace guy to come out, fix his furnace, replace a board, all this stuff, just because he was like, "Yeah,
Ouch.
you know what? I can do that." So that's an expensive lesson learned, right?
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and that's one of those things where it's as easy as, "Hey, make sure you turn off the power to your furnace," right? When you're
Yep.
messing around with wires, which, like you said, you don't want to burn the house down, but you don't want to kill yourself either. So
Right,
yeah.
right. No.
All right. So let's move on. Pricing. Once you're ready, once the flip is done, this is the other part, right? Where you make the money. And it doesn't matter whether you're an investor, whether you're a seller, whatever, right? It's very emotional when it comes to listing your own property and trying to figure out what price you should list it at. So, what are your thoughts on that? How do you go about doing that? Do you hire? I mean, yeah, we talked a little bit about you could hire another realtor, you could represent yourself, but what's your thoughts on pricing?
So pricing, I always tell my clients, and I listen to my own advice, right? Because I'm a realtor. Price low and get the bids to come in higher, right? Because if you price high and it stays on the market, what happens is people assume there's something wrong, even if there's absolutely nothing wrong with the house, right? So, if you price it low enough, you're going to get a bunch of people who are going to want to come in and buy it. And then there's going to be multiple bids. And then you can ask for highest and best, or you can negotiate the price back up. In cases where, like, look, if you price low and nobody's buying it, that means that your price of that property is actually low, right? Like, and so My thoughts are is that if you only get one offer in, the likelihood is that you're priced exactly where you're going to be at. Now, if you price low, you're going to see multiple offers, right? So this house will probably price at about like 365 and see if we can actually get, because I really think that it's going to go for 375. Um, with not that many house on the market at for this specific neighborhood, it's probably going to go at the higher price because it's just overall the house is going to be in really, really good condition once we're done. So, we're going to price it low. We think it's going to go for 175 or 375, and we're going to sell it for, 365 in hopes that we get multiple offers. They'll drive the price right back up to 375. Hopefully, we get someone that comes in and says, we don't want any inspections. We're going to just move forward. And that make the process a lot smoother and a lot faster. Granted, if they want to do inspections, that's totally fine too, because the house is going to be in tip top shape when we're done. Right. So, um, my thoughts are is that you got to make sure you don't overprice, because when you overprice, that's like the worst thing you can do when selling a house. You overprice, no one puts an offer in, 2 weeks go by, you drop the price. People are going to wonder, why did they drop the price? And then 2 weeks go by after that, nobody's bought it because now you're at price. And because 2 weeks have gone by, they're thinking you should give more discount. So after about a month, now you're dropping it again, and somebody finally comes in and is like, "Oh yeah, so the house is actually what I want. Everything seems to be really, really good, but we're gonna lowball them because it's been on the market for a while, and there probably is a problem, right?" And so even if they find no problems, you're just not getting the best offer at that point, right? There's been houses where I've offered on that are in good condition because I just wanted to pick it up as a rental, and I offered the price at what I thought the value was going to be. They received zero offers, right? And they reject my offer. And then like 2 months go by and they take the offer that was priced at the offer that I originally made, right? And so my thoughts are is that and that's from a buying perspective, right? My thoughts are is that don't number one, don't overprice. Number two, right? The first offer you get, like take it seriously. Because there might be a reason that it's priced exactly where it's at. And sellers oftentimes are going to be like, well, they didn't give me what I want, so I want to leave it on the market longer. Well, yeah, you want to double check that, right?
Yeah.
You may not get another offer. So,
Yeah, it's always very, very interesting on the pricing strategy. Like we said, it's very emotional. And
mhm,
sometimes the purpose of hiring a professional or somebody else besides you is to have another opinion, right? And
mhm, mhm,
yeah, I mean, I've had crazy sellers where they want to list 50K over, but we can't find any comps. I show them all comps in the market. And there's no comp that can support what they're wanting to list at. And
mhm.
then the price that I want them to list at, and they're like, well, if we get an offer at that price, can we reject it? I'm like, this price that I'm suggesting to you is still 25,000 over what I would recommend you list at. you
This
know?
is professional advice right now, right?
Yeah, and then they keep saying like, "Oh, but mine's like 100 square feet more." Well, who cares? 100 square feet more is not
It's not
really
gonna
some.
make or break a deal. Yeah.
Right, right, and it's like, well, what is there a benefit to the 100 square feet? And the condition, right? Condition plays a huge part. For whatever reason, it's always "Oh, but the house across street, the neighbor across street sold for this, and I think my house is better, so, you know, I wanna list it for this." So, it's always crazy. Yeah, but, sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't, but it's the challenge, right? And I think, you have to have a game plan, like you said. If you list it for like, "Hey, seller, we can list at your price," but if you get only one showing that whole first week, we need to drop the price immediately,
Yep.
right? We need to do something immediately because especially in a seller's market or in a seller's market where sellers are selling their homes quickly, if your listing has very little showings, one in a weekend, that's a huge red flag that you are way
Mhm,
overpriced,
mhm.
right? And buyers are not stupid, right? So I think a lot of sellers, they don't think of it in the buyer's perspective, right?
Mhm.
Um, I do a lot of work with buyers, right? And so when we're trying to put in our offers, especially in competitive markets, I'm always trying to put them in the perspective of the seller, right? Like, hey, to
Mhm.
write the best offer, the one that has the highest chance of getting accepted, we got to think in the seller's shoes, right? Like, what would you want to see in an offer, right? Obviously,
Mhm.
besides highest price, what terms, right? And then the same thing. I think when we're on the listing side, we need to talk to sellers and put them in the perspective of the buyers, right? Just like you mentioned, if you list high and your house is in the market for 30 days, it's a turnoff to a buyer.
Mhm.
Their game plan is going to be different, right? It by the time
Yeah.
you drop the price 30 days later to where it should have been, according to your agent when they first talked to you, by the time you drop the price to that price where it should have been, the buyer's gonna be like, well, that dude's desperate. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna lowball him even more, right?
Yep.
So the game plan's different, right? But had you
Yep.
priced it right in the beginning, day one, you would have got like multiple showings, multiple offers potentially, and you would have been
Yep.
one and done, right?
Yep.
So that's a challenge. Are you trying to share something or?
No, no, I'm not. I think I canceled out the sharing. That's
All
all I
right.
was doing.
Okay. So that's the pricing, and yeah, it's always tricky, tricky. Of course, everybody's trying to get the most they want, right? So,
Mhm.
and that's our job is to help our clients get the most they can, right?
Yep.
So looking back so far, you haven't closed this, you haven't sold it yet, right? But
Mhm.
what lessons have you learned so far? What challenges have you had already? What do you have to overcome already?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that I have is, if you expect the property to be broom clean, right?
Mm.
Don't close on the deal until it is.
Ah,
I,
yes.
I expected it to be broom clean, but then, and I was told by the listing agent that it was.
Mm.
Well, I went to closing that day, and then I showed up in the afternoon, and they still had a moving truck in front of the house.
Oh,
I probably should have waited,
yep.
right,
All right.
and did a few more walkthroughs to make sure that everything was really, really clean.
Mm.
I mean, could I bill the seller, um, for cleaning the property? Yeah, but I
Mm.
mean, what are the chances that you're gonna get that paid, and what kind of hassle do you actually have to go through for that process?
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult after the closing to try to do anything. So,
Hmm.
but no, outside of that, my thoughts are is that we'll see what happens, right? The property should sell. It's actually a really, really nice property. So it should sell, and my hopes are is that it does sell in March and we close in April, right? So
Mm.
we expect that to be a we close this month, right? So December, then January, February, March, April. That's about a 4 month turn time. So if it does turn around and you make $50,000 off of it, it's not a bad deal, right? Not a bad deal. Um, and as a realtor, I'm still debating on whether I should do that strategy, with EXP, where we just go ahead and take the 16 up front, and then every deal after that we're capped, right? And so, um, sometimes as a realtor, we can get it paid through as 100% commission, versus trying to do it as a transaction. But I gotta run my numbers to find out if that's something that makes sense to do.
Mm. Okay. Awesome. So we'll stay in touch with you on the progress, and
Mhm.
you can keep us updated as you go.
Yeah.
So we've got the holidays coming up here. This is our last episode for the year. We're going to take next week off and spend the Christmas with the family, right?
Yep.
Um, reflect and rest, and you know, get ready for the new year here in 2026. So we'll see you guys back in 2026. We do have our Facebook page, right? So a Facebook page, Ninja Wealth Exchange, if you search it up. So maybe we'll have Johnny share some pictures as he's progressing along the way of his flip. So you guys can stay tuned and follow us for that. But yeah, I mean, anything else you want to add, Johnny, before we head out?
No, I mean, I think the biggest ad is, hey, if this is something you're thinking about doing, right? I think start sooner than later. And don't be afraid to find partners, because maybe they'll have a different skill set than you do, and
Mm.
things will work out better. In this specific case, I don't have a partner, but in other transactions I do have partners. And so find a partner and get going, because the sooner you do it, the faster you're going to learn. And look, how often do people make $50,000 in a span of about 4 months? Um, if you find the right deal and if you can make something like this happen, I think it's worth it for most people, right? So
Mhm.
get involved, watch, watch our videos, subscribe so that you guys can see what we're doing, right? And how we're building wealth, and how you might be able to get involved too, right? Talking to, those that are newbies, those that are professionals, you guys know what you're doing. Feel free to reach out if you want to partner up. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, totally. So there's always the negative Nancy's out there that always say, "Oh, but the deals are not out there. The prices are too high. There's no good deals. Everybody's
Hey, got
overpriced."
one. Right.
Right, right. And so what it goes to show is that you just have to be ready. You have to be
Yep.
looking, and it's your network, really. If you network, like you said, when you're ready to look for a deal, I'm looking for a deal right now. I'm looking for a deal in DFW, right? So I'm
Nice.
contacting realtors, I'm contacting wholesalers, I'm contacting investors for off-market deals. So I'm
Yep.
actively looking for something to pick up, right? But no, you just got to be out there looking. And when you look at enough deals, you begin to start filtering right away that what's
Mhm.
a good deal, what has potential, what's like total waste of time, right?
Yep. Yep.
So you start to see that.
Yep.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. So Ninja Wealth Exchange episode 13 here, just to show you guys that we're not here just to talk about real estate all the time. We're actually out here doing deals ourselves. So all right. Have fun. Have a great Christmas, Johnny. I'll see you next year.
Thanks. Sounds good. Same to you, man.
Bye.